Arthur shivered despite the thick blanket, a vice gripping his stomach. "Olivia," he groaned. "I think it's coming back. A spasm." Olivia, perched on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone, barely glanced up. "Can't you just take something? You're always having these." She clicked her tongue in annoyance, the sound sharp in the otherwise quiet room. "Honestly, Arthur, you're keeping me up." Arthur bit back a retort, the pain momentarily eclipsing his irritation. Could you get me some water? Maybe some medicine?" Olivia rolled her eyes, but finally relented, rising from the bed with a dramatic sigh. "Fine, but you owe me. I was just about to fall asleep." As she exited the bedroom, Arthur heard the telltale chime of her phone. The special ringtone he knew was assigned to her ex, Liam. A soft murmur followed, laced with a tenderness he hadn't heard directed his way in months. Moments later, Olivia reappeared, fully dressed. Seeing Arthur hunched on the sofa, a knot of pain etched on his face, a flicker of something resembling concern crossed her features before vanishing as quickly as it came. "Still hurting? I suppose I could run out and get something." Arthur gazed at the dark expanse beyond the window. "It's all right. I can manage. I don't want you going out alone so late." Olivia, already slipping on her shoes, scoffed. "Don't be ridiculous. What could possibly happen? I'll be back before you know it." Without waiting for a response, she was gone. The chill in the air mirrored the growing coldness in his heart. Ever since Liam had re-entered her life, Olivia had become distant, critical, almost hostile. Just yesterday, during yet another argument, she declared, "Liam is struggling, Arthur, and I can't just abandon him. If you can't handle it, then maybe we should consider a divorce." A wave of weariness washed over Arthur. For so long, he had clung to the hope that Olivia still cared, that their relationship was worth fighting for. He'd rationalized her behavior, telling himself that Liam was just a friend, a temporary distraction, that he, Arthur, was her future. He had even convinced himself that he should be supportive of Liam. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. Olivia didn't return, nor did she respond to his texts. Concern morphed into a gnawing dread. He tried calling her, but the call went straight to voicemail. As another wave of searing pain ripped through him, Arthur couldn't bear to wait any longer. He forced himself to his feet, determined to find her. Just then, his phone buzzed. A single message from Olivia. Something came up. "Won't be back tonight." The word struck him like a physical blow. He knew, with a certainty that settled like ice in his veins, where she was. Liam. With trembling fingers, he opened his social media. There it was, Liam's latest post. So grateful for Olivia's tender, loving care. The photo showed Olivia, her face a mask of compassionate concern, applying a bandage to Liam's arm. Arthur sank back onto the sofa, the pain in his stomach overshadowed by a deeper, more agonizing ache. He was nothing but a backup. Olivia had changed, or maybe she had never changed, and he was too blind, too eager to be loved. He saw it now. When Arthur next awoke, he was in a sterile hospital room. 2 days had passed. Olivia's last message, sent 20 minutes prior, read, "Are you doing this for attention, Arthur? I swear, if you're just trying to manipulate me, I'm serious, I'm done. We can get a divorce." This time, Arthur replied with a single word, "Okay." The phone rang almost instantly. "Arthur, don't you dare start with this again. You want a divorce? Fine. Let's do it tomorrow." He sighed. "I'm not playing games, Olivia, but tomorrow won't work. I'm in the hospital. I'll contact you when I'm discharged." Olivia's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Oh, so now you're backing down? Finding another excuse?" Arthur managed a weak laugh. "Haven't you been home these past few days?" A brief silence hung in the air before Olivia's voice rose in pitch. "How dare you accuse me? Liam and I are just friends. He had a terrible cold, and I was just helping him out." "Liv, could you help me to the restroom?" Liam's voice echoed faintly in the background. "Coming." The line went dead. He was disposable. He had been blind to it for so long, but no longer. "Room 37? You're awake. You need to settle the bill. Stomach hemorrhage. You were lucky someone got you here in time. A nurse stood in the doorway, her expression a mixture of professional concern and weary resignation. Would you mind taking care of it for me? Arthur offered his bank card, feeling a wave of shame wash over him. The nurse nodded, a knowing look in her eyes. She returned later with a small tray of food. Arthur managed a weak smile of gratitude. A stranger's kindness felt like a lifeline. Later that evening, as he drifted in and out of sleep, his phone buzzed again. Where have you been? You haven't been home for 2 days. What do you think you're doing, Arthur? Olivia's voice was shrill, tinged with panic. Arthur's remaining sleep evaporated. I told you. I'm in the hospital. Stomach hemorrhage. I'll contact you about the divorce when I get out. Olivia's tone softened, almost conciliatory. I didn't realize it was that serious. I'll come see you right away. Arthur started to protest, but the line went dead. He let out a long, weary sigh. He barely cared anymore. He awoke later to find the room still empty. Olivia hadn't come. It was no surprise. He was used to it. Opening his phone to order food, he saw a message Olivia had sent 2 hours earlier. I'll come later, bring you dinner. Wait for me. Without expression, Arthur deleted the message and placed an order for delivery. He was starving. He couldn't rely on empty promises. His stomach, wrecked from years of neglect, was a constant reminder of Olivia. When Olivia had decided to start her own business, Arthur had eagerly taken to entertaining for Olivia's potential investors and clients. Later, as Olivia's business thrived, she had pressured Arthur to become a stay-at-home husband. He had never minded, even happy to be doing it for her. He'd often go hungry waiting for her to come home, only for her to arrive late, having already eaten or not wanting to eat at all. Eventually, he'd started eating on his own, only to be met with her complaints. The truth was she never thought of him. He had tried so hard. But now, no more. He ordered in, ate peacefully. It was as simple as that. Olivia arrived later. It was almost as if she were on cue. She held a container of what looked like congealed porridge. It was cold. Oh, Arthur, I had no idea this was happening, she said, her tone placating. Here, I wanted to bring you something. Are you doing okay? Arthur sidestepped her hand as she approached. Don't touch me. What did you say? Olivia said, taken aback. Arthur stared back, his face as blank as his heart. You heard me. You're disgusting. He turned to her, his eyes cold. You asked me to bring my father and mother to you. You want to take them to every appointment, but you never visit them yourself. What kind of person acts like this? Olivia's eyes narrowed. You listen, Arthur. I came here and I wanted to show you I cared. Arthur nodded. His head hung low. That's funny, because I don't feel that way. I really don't. Olivia stood silent, her face unreadable. Arthur knew what he had to do. Get out, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Please. Olivia did not need to be told twice. With a huff, she flung the congealed porridge into the nearby trash can and stormed out of the room. Arthur watched the door swing shut behind her, a sense of finality settling over him. The sound of the slamming door signified so much more than just the end of a visit. He found an attorney and started the divorce. Just outside of the hospital, he received a text. My father's health is not doing well. He is sick and has an important appointment. Take him to the hospital for me. Arthur thought about his father and all the memories he had had of him in his life. He was an amazing man who always put his family first. He was the kind of man that Arthur aspired to be. Now all that he wanted to do was be with his father. It was a no-brainer. I'm busy, he said as he closed out of his phone. Entering the house he had once called home, Arthur froze. There standing in front of him were Olivia and Liam. Olivia gave him a warm smile. Arthur, she said, what are you doing here? Arthur said, I live here, Olivia said, matter-of-factly. You're the one who's intruding. Without saying a word, Arthur began gathering his belongings and storing them in a suitcase. Liam approached Arthur with his hand outstretched. Arthur, Olivia and I are from the past, and our relationship is ancient history, Liam began. Arthur nodded. And that's why she was with you the other night, because you're old news. That's enough, Olivia yelled. I will not stand here and listen to you talk to my friends like this. Friends? Is that what we're calling it? Arthur said with a smirk. Yes, that's what we're calling it. Now get out, Olivia said. Suddenly, Liam reached for Arthur and tumbled to the floor. Olivia screamed. What have you done? Olivia screamed, pushing Arthur aside. Arthur scoffed. What I did was liberate myself. There's no helping someone like you, Olivia said, taking Liam's hand, but I can do something else. I can leave you. Arthur stared back at her, confused. Is that supposed to hurt? Olivia stared back, seething. Oh, you have no idea. Well, I guess there's only one way to find out, Arthur said, retrieving his phone. Before Olivia could stop him, Arthur had already dialed the number for his lawyer and scheduled the signing of the divorce papers. You can't do this, Olivia yelled. I already did, Arthur said. Fine. Have it your way, Olivia said, grabbing Liam's hand and storming out. You're going to regret this. Arthur stared at the door as it swung back and forth. The moment was liberating. Arthur felt that, for the first time in his life, he was free. The door was open, and it was time to be himself. The first thing Arthur did was visit his parents. For so long, Arthur had allowed Olivia's opinion to dictate his life. It was time that changed. It was time to be with the people who mattered most. As Arthur's father tended to his garden, Arthur could not help but be overwhelmed with emotion. Father, Arthur began. Arthur's father turned to face him, his eyes full of love. What is it, son? His father said. I'm back, Arthur said, tears streaming down his face. His father nodded and reached for Arthur's hand. I know, son. I've missed you so much, Arthur said. And we've missed you, his father said. But it's okay. You're here now. Arthur, is that you? Arthur's mother called from inside the house. Yes, mother, Arthur said. It's me. Arthur's mother rushed outside and enveloped him in a hug. Arthur, we've missed you so much, she said. We understand you're separated from Olivia, is that right? Arthur nodded. It's true. Well, you are always welcome here, son, his mother said. I know, Arthur said, and I'm not going anywhere. The sound of a car startled them all. An elegant vehicle pulled up in the driveway, and from the car stepped Eleanor. Oh, Arthur's mother began. Arthur, you remember Eleanor, don't you? Of course, Arthur said. Hello, Arthur, Eleanor said. It's so good to see you. It's good to see you too, Arthur said. Eleanor turned to Arthur's parents. I know, son, Arthur said, and I'm not going anywhere. Thank you for having me, she said. I brought some dessert, because I know that your mother always loves to share with others. Arthur's mother grinned. It's true, she said. I'm so glad you brought that. Arthur, you'll take Eleanor to dinner, won't you? Yes, of course, Arthur said. It would be my pleasure, Eleanor said. As Arthur and Eleanor left for dinner, they found themselves in a familiar, comfortable space. Arthur, I didn't know you were back in town, Eleanor said. I heard you were married. I'm sorry to hear that you are no longer together. Thank you, Arthur said. Suddenly, from across the restaurant, they could see Olivia, storming in their direction. So, Arthur, I see you've moved on, Olivia scoffed. Looks like I called it right. It's not what it looks like, Arthur said. Without warning, Olivia grabbed Eleanor by the hair and began to pull. You scheming hussy, trying to steal my man. Olivia shrieked, lunging at Eleanor. Arthur reacted instinctively, stepping in front of Eleanor and pushing Olivia away. Olivia landed heavily on the floor, instantly turning on the waterworks. Arthur, how could you? You hit me for her? Arthur ignored her theatrics, focusing on Eleanor. Are you all right? Eleanor nodded, offering a tight smile. I'm fine. Really? Liam, seeing his chance to play the hero, rushed forward, his brow furrowed in faux outrage. Arthur, this is beyond the pale. Bringing your mistress out in public and then assaulting your wife? Arthur had had enough of their charade. He dropped the pretense of civility. Oh, let's not play innocent, Liam, who looks more like the homewrecker. Here, who was clinging to whom the moment they walked in, whispering sweet nothings, who was feeding whom canapes with suggestive looks. His words landed like a bomb, and suddenly all eyes in the restaurant were on Olivia and Liam. Shamefaced, Olivia grabbed Liam's arm and dragged him out of the restaurant. Once they were gone, the tension eased, but Arthur had lost his appetite. He turned to Eleanor, offering an apologetic smile. I'm so sorry you had to witness that. I'll take you home. We can reschedule for another night. Eleanor laughed, a warm, genuine sound. Don't be silly, Arthur. I'm not offended. Besides, I'm starving. Are you really going to deprive me of dinner? Arthur couldn't help but smile. You haven't changed a bit. He was struck by a sudden memory of those days where it seemed she was always there for him. Her laughter, her confidence, it had been the brightest time of his life. Then Olivia, a firecracker full of promise and danger, had captured his attention. It was a moment he would never forget, and a moment he would never let happen again. So, she asked, peering at him over the menu, her eyes sparkling, am I imposing? Arthur realized that, lost in the past, he was still making the same mistakes. He blushed. No, not at all. I'm so glad that you're here, Eleanor. It's me who's imposing by bringing my baggage with me. Well, you're stuck with it now, Eleanor laughed. So what do you want to order? It's on me, Arthur said. Well, I remember that you were always allergic to shellfish. So maybe we should get something that doesn't have that, she said. I remember that you always loved bamboo shoots. Why don't we get that? Arthur stared back at her, astonished. How did you remember that? How could you have known? With a flash of insight, he saw it. Only love could remember these things. She had come to his parents' house often. She had never forgotten. Arthur, she began, the reason that I came back to you is because I needed to tell you how I felt. But now you are divorced, and I was wondering if we could start again. He could not help but nod. Don't you think that's a little forward of you? Arthur joked. What can I say? I'm just a bold woman. You're going to have to get used to that, she smiled. Arthur could not help but nod, a little giddy. I don't think that will be a problem. Okay, well that's good. But now you have to do something for me, Eleanor said. After all this, I deserve to have a proper confession of your love. The air around him was giddy, and he suddenly felt that it was all very real. Eleanor, when I met you I knew that I loved you. I was very young, and I made a mistake. Please tell me that there's still time for me to find you. Well, I'm right here in front of you, she smiled and took his hand. The ball's in your court now. Their meal was a reunion, and they both felt as if they were in school. Soon enough it was time for Arthur to take Eleanor home. As they approached his home, Arthur's phone began to ring. The caller ID indicated that it was Olivia. Arthur wanted to ignore it, but knew that the only way to get past his past was to face his present. Hello? He said, his face a mask of calm. Arthur, Olivia sobbed on the other end of the line. Where are all of your things? Olivia, we are divorced. It's over, Arthur said, turning to Eleanor. I need to take this. I'll be right back. Who are you with? Are you cheating on me again? Arthur, remember what you did with Liam? Arthur asked, his voice dripping with acid. Now you know how I felt then. Arthur, please. No, she cried. Arthur hung up the phone, unable to keep himself together. That's that, he said. I'll make sure that the police have the restraining order ready. The next morning, Arthur was surprised to find Olivia at his door. Olivia, what are you doing here? He asked. We are not married. Leave my house. Arthur's mother came by to check. Oh, Olivia, she said, in a tone of surprise. You look different. Hello, Mrs. Lancaster. It's so good to see you, Olivia said, fumbling with her purse. Here, this is for you. Some of the birds' nest. Olivia, Arthur said, what's going on? Okay, Olivia said. Listen, I'm ready to take you back. It was a mistake to leave. Olivia, I don't want to hear it, Arthur said. Now get out. What's done is done. Now leave my mother alone, too. You always said you couldn't stand her. Arthur's mother frowned. "Oh, Arthur, what's all the commotion?" "It's nothing, Mother," Arthur said. "Olivia was just leaving." "Oh," his mother said, looking at Olivia. "Well, thank you for the bird's nest. I'll be sure to use it." Arthur guided Olivia out of the house and made sure that she went. As he came back, he turned to his mother. "I will never do that again, I promise," he said. She nodded. "You be good, son." The next day, Arthur was preparing for his wedding when he got a call from a local hospital. Liam was in the hospital with terminal cancer. He needed Olivia to see him. Arthur scoffed, but the next day, Olivia called him. "Arthur," she began, "please, I need your help." Arthur said nothing. "I'm going to see Liam," she said. "He needs me, and I need him. You're going to have to find it in your heart to forgive me." Arthur didn't say anything. He was just glad to be done with it. The wedding proceeded on schedule. Arthur kissed his bride and knew that it was the life that he wanted. As the reception proceeded, he thought he saw Olivia in the distance, but she was gone when he looked. Later that night, Arthur received a call from Olivia's mother. Olivia had passed away. She had terminal cancer and had hidden it from Arthur so that she would not have to burden him. Arthur cried and could not stop. Arthur turned to Eleanor. "She had terminal cancer all along," he said. "That's why she left." "I know," she said, holding him. "I know, Arthur. It will all be okay." Some months later, Arthur and Eleanor were doing better than ever. One day, however, Eleanor brought something up. "Arthur," she said, "I'm pregnant." Arthur was elated. They went through with the pregnancy and named their daughter Olivia, in the hopes that someday that name would bring some joy to someone's life. In the end, there was a happy ending, and life went on.